Hey everybody, Who's Your Jedi here with another review for you. This time I'm talking episode 4 of season 5 of The Walking Dead called Slabtown. Now after all the craziness with wrapping up the Terminus storyline over the last 3 episodes, this is kind of a slower paced episode. And I saw that didn't really go over well with a lot of people. And that's exacerbated by the whole thing that it's a Beth episode. Now, if you've watched my reviews regularly, you know that actually Beth is one of my favorite characters. I really do like her quite a bit, and I really enjoyed how she's grown since she was introduced in season 2. But this I can understand why this is not an episode that everybody's really going to get into. But this is one. It's a Beth episode. It's sort of the big thing of like, where's Beth been since she disappeared? And given that this is kind of going to be where they basically the dealing with the Beth situation is going to be sort of the mini boss that's going to lead us up to the mid-season finale. So a lot of characters have to be introduced. The whole situation at the hospital has to be set up and made so that we understand what's going on there. And they need to start moving that in so that Rick and the gang can head there and again move towards the mid-season finale. So whenever there's a lot of world building to be done, yeah, things do tend to by necessity move a little slower. So I'm okay with that, but some people just don't have patience. So anyway, well, this episode really, and the other thing that a lot of people were complaining about is like, well, why doesn't Beth just go out there and start trying to kick ass? Okay. First of all, yes, Beth has seriously improved in the butt-kicking department since season 2. However, the antagonists are trained cops, so basically think them as being like on an equivalent to being pretty much, like dealing with a military person. So yeah, even if you can handle yourself in a fight reasonably well, taking on a bunch of armed trained cops is probably not going to end that well for you, especially if you're a rather thin girl who's probably still in her teens. Yeah, sorry, but there's a reason why Luna Lovegood is not a kung fu hero, okay? Beth tries anything like that, she's going to be dead in no time, and she knows it. Now, sure, if, Daryl and Rick and the gang were just outside the hospital or something, then she'd be willing to try something a little bit more bold. But here she's cut off, she's on her own, she's in a hostile environment. She's got to pick her fights and pick her moment. And that's what she does in this episode, and that's why she manages to succeed. It manages to almost get away, and does succeed in letting Noah escape. Gotta use this if you want to stay alive in the zombie apocalypse, folks. So anyway, at the hospital we have Dawn, who's this former Atlanta cop, who's basically sort of become this little petty dictator. And the thing with Dawn is that, like a lot of our major bad guys on the show, she's also kind of a reflection of Rick. Here it's really taking that law enforcement side of Rick and really amping it up. And it's also a situation where Dawn is basically living in a dream world. She's deluded herself. She's just like, I just got to hang on. Somebody will come and rescue us, and then we'll go out there and we'll put the world back in order. That's the idea that she's had to hang on to basically keep from going crazy, or at least crazier than she has. Meanwhile, you've got Dr. Edwards, the doctor who's nice to Beth, and Dr. Edwards sees the world for what it is. He realizes that, if I try and go out there, I'm going to be dead in no time. He even has that moment where he goes down there and shows Beth the zombies and sort of like, this is why what I do to remind myself about how as bad as it is in here, it's worse out there. And the thing is, though, whether it's accepting the reality in which they are or just living in a delusion, both Dawn and Dr. Edwards end up being, well, oath breakers. I mean, and it's a really kind of a subtle theme in this episode. Police officers take an oath to protect and serve. Well, here the cops at the hospital They don't do that. They abuse and exploit. A doctor takes an oath to first do no harm. What does he do? He tricks Beth into murdering a guy. And again, it's all just the big theme of this zombie apocalypse. How much of your soul do you give up in order to survive? And once again, we're presented with examples of people who've given up too much. Dawn again has basically become a tyrant. Noah even says, the doctor even tells them, go change that shirt. Dawn doesn't like people having dirty shirts. As if dirty shirts in the zombie apocalypse matter one little bit. But just the idea that this is one of Dawn's little rules, and you can't offend her, otherwise you're in trouble. And that's not even looking at the fact that Dawn is basically turning a blind eye to Gorman raping Joan. I mean, she even kind of tries to justify it as like, the happier my officers are, the harder they work, the better, the more we're able to survive. Well, maybe so, but this is a cop who's basically turning a blind eye to someone repeatedly raping a woman. And Dawn even is perfectly happy to just beat people. And you look what Noah says, that his father, Dawn tells him that, we only had the resources to save one of you, when in regards to him as father. And Noah is pretty confident that they let his father die because his dad was a big, strong dude who would have fought back. I mean, true, granted, this is Noah's speculation, but taking a look at this situation, you have to imagine he's probably right. And again, it all just comes up to the idea that Dawn has just wrapped herself up in this delusion that what I'm doing serves a purpose. What I'm doing is for the greater good. And I mean, she just does not want to admit to herself that she's really just completely abandoned all her real morals. I mean, for example, when the doctor sort of argues with her about the treatment, she goes and she smacks Beth. She doesn't hit the doctor because, well, she can't really afford to do anything bad towards their one source of medical treatment. So what does she do? She takes it out on an innocent person, knowing that will upset Dr. Edwards. It's just a case of, okay, I can't lay a hand on you, but if you sass me, I'll hurt some of the innocent people around you, because I know that will upset you. And of course, there's also, and as I said, she's also tolerating an officer who's just basically a serial rapist. I mean, have you ever had those moments where you just want to like reach through the screen and strangle one of the characters? They're just that, you just hate them that much. That's really what I'm feeling for Dawn. I don't hate Gareth this much. I mean, yeah, Gareth was a real bastard, but he didn't try and justify something like this. I mean, sure, he tried to justify cannibalism, but he wasn't pretending that he was a good person. He had fully accepted that he was just doing this because this is what he thought he had to do to survive. Okay, I don't know. I can't really just keep going on about that. It just genuinely really upsets me. Okay, and kind of moving over to talk about Dr. Edwards, and there's the whole situation with him tricking Beth into killing the other doctor. Now, I thought this was a little weird because, well, yeah, one doctor is good, two doctors are better. So you can sort of see why. So it sort of makes sense from that perspective. But from Dr. Edwards' perspective is, if this guy pulls through, then suddenly my ability to have any sort of leverage against Dawn is at best halved. She can start coming to me and say, hey, if you even blink in a way that I don't like, I can just kill you and I've still got another doctor. So he realizes that if this other doctor pulls through, his situation becomes infinitely more precarious. And then at the end of it, he tries to justify it all with that stuff about Peter and whatnot, but still, you have to. Although if you do have to sort of look at the scale of it all, at least Dr. Edwards tries, when basically it's not his neck in the guillotine, to stand up a little bit. I mean, he stands up to Dawn a little bit. He stands up to Gorman a little bit. I mean, he's doing what he can. But if it comes down to the point where it's genuinely his neck on the block, well, he's going to save himself. So I can't help but wonder if, now that Bob's gone, this guy might actually end up surviving the hospital so that the group could have a another medical person around. Remember, it only got mentioned briefly, but Bob had been a medic in the Army before everything went to hell. So that's a possibility, but I'm not holding out huge hopes for that. And let's see. And yeah, I do have to agree with most of the people out there. I think that it was Noah that Daryl found in the woods. And he was going to be the person that was going to step out of the shadows and whatnot and kind of inform the group about what happened to Beth. Now, the other question is Carol being in the hospital part of a plan or not? I don't know. I'm actually kind of leaning towards it to some degree that this might be part of a plan. But yeah, Carol versus Dawn sounds like a pretty darn cool fight. And when I saw Carol there in that episode, it kind of dawned on me something. I'd mentioned in my reviews previously just how much like Daryl Beth had become. But then at that moment, I actually realized that Beth is actually in a lot of ways becoming a lot more like Carol. Now granted, her time with Daryl, she's picking up the skills to be as badass as the both of them. But just in terms of the physicality of all and the way they deal with the world, I think Beth is much more likely to turn into someone like Carol than she is like Daryl. And that's no slight. Carol is massively badass, as we saw by episode 1 of this season. So yeah, I think Beth is going to be just fine. And let's see. Yep, that covers it, guys. As always, please comment, rate, and subscribe, and of course you can follow me on Twitter at Hoosier Jedi. Until next time, take care and have a good one.